In order to live happily and comfortably in the world, man has to meet his various needs. Man's basic needs are food, shelter, and clothes. To survive in this world, man has to fulfill the above given requirements as well as he has to meet the challenges of his habitat. The term habitat is defined as a natural setting of human existence, with the physical feature of the region inhabited by a group of people, its natural resources available to the inhabitants, its climate, altitude, and other geographical features to which they have adapted themselves. Man cannot exist unless he meets the challenges of his habitat. The habitat exercises a decisive influence in shaping the culture and economy. The term economy is defined as a system of fulfillment of basic needs from the environment and available resources to the people. It can also be defined as the existence of want in excess of the capacity to produce. However, some sorts of economic activities are found in all societies which are necessary for the survival of its member. These activities not only satisfy the basic needs but also serve the desire for comfort and use of his environment. Now let us discuss about the habitat of prehistoric societies. In prehistoric time, man was just like his near primate, such as apes and monkeys. Man moved from place to place in search of food. In earliest time, man found stones, reeds, bamboos, wood, etc. in the environment. He made simple and rough tools and implements for various purposes, especially to kill animals, birds, cat species, dig out roots, rhizomes, and tubers. Ever since man living in this earth, 99% of the time was spent on hunting, fishing, and collecting the raw materials for his survival. In the post-glacial phase, men became united and formed groups to carry out activities like hunting, fishing, and gathering in an organized way. The conversion of food production from food collecting was a revolutionary change in human history, which led to the foundation of human civilization. Cultivated fields and the tame herds of cattle and sheep gave the householders plenty of leisure time. Men no longer spent their energies in chasing wild beasts or in searching edible foods. The first evidence of such change was discovered from the Near East. Wild variety of wheat and barley were found growing there. Natufians live in the caves of Mount Carmel in Palestine and in the neighborhood of Lydda, exhibit an excellent control and ultimate mastery on nature through agriculture. In addition to this, hunting and gathering were the principal means of subsistence for the Natufians. The very long period of Lower Paleolithic is mainly marked by the invention of stone tool-making techniques. Even with these inventions, there is little evidence that efficient hunting tools existed, and man was probably more a collector of wild food than a hunter. Although packing men lived in caves and used fire, there was no comparable evidence that Paleolithic man was able to adapt to extreme climate. In Middle Paleolithic, The evidence of habitation site, including caves, were found. It shows that men retreat from open stations to caves and rock shelters. During this period, hunting was more important than collecting wild plants. During the Upper Paleolithic period, man gained his livelihood mainly by hunting. Although in some areas we found out first evidence that he was also a fisherman. The Mesolithic is a transitional period lying between Paleolithic and Neolithic culture. This period is marked by the terminal phase of Paleolithic condition to Neolithic. The termination of major glacial activity of the Pleistocene resulted warm climate. The expansion of desert and semi-desert areas in Africa and Asia forced some groups to seek new but suitable habitats. Mesolithic people carried on experiments which led to the sedentary form of agriculture and domestication of some specific animals, which turned most of the mankind into food producers in later period rather than food collectors. Homo neanderthalensis is the only human race of this cultural phase. Neanderthal men continued to live in Europe despite cold climate, and the warm glaciation suggests at least a crude use of furs and skins of animals for body covering. The Mesolithic period is noted for its microlithic industries. The microlithic culture is subdivided into a number of traditions. They are: number 1, the Aegelian; number 2, the Asturian; and number 3, the Denoisian; number 4, the Lernian; number 5, the Megalomosian; number 6, the Kitchen Median or Shale Heap; and number 7, the Campanian. According to prehistorian Barry Gordon-Seil, there was a drastic change of climate in the post-glacial period, which favored the domestication of plants in the Near East and North Africa. Robert Rideout mentioned that food production was not the outcome of climate change. Domestication began only in those regions where plants and animals were found ready for domestication. The Neolithic revolution took place not only in the Near East, but also in a number of areas of the world. Intensive cultivation and domestication of animals of late Neolithic era were responsible for growth of population. Neolithic sedentary life based on farming ended in urbanism. In the Near East, the early villages were based on agriculture or animal husbandry or combination of both. Now let us talk on the economy of prehistoric societies. According to the traditional anthropological classification, there are 5 basic forms of economy based on the technology. They are as follows: number 1, gathering, hunting and fishing; number 2, herding or pastoralism; number 3, horticulture; number 4, agriculture; and the 5th one is factory industrialism. Now come to gathering economy. Man was a food gatherer since several hundred years of Paleolithic. In Neolithic times, since 8 to 10,000 years ago, human society developed food production. As a food gatherer, man evolved, dispersed over much of the inhabited world and led the broad production of human culture. Now turn to hunting economy. Hunting technologies depend upon game for the sake of food supply. Yet, within this category, great differences may exist. The Australian hunters pay their attention on kangaroos. The plain Indians on bison, that is buffalo. Eskimo depend upon sea mammals such as seal and walrus in winter time and carnivores in summer. Now turn to the third economy, fishing. Few people build their subsistence around the use of fish, although many use fish to supplement the diet. Even when the coastal people devote much of their time for catching fishes, they often secure a considerable portion of their food by trade from inland dwellers in return for fishes. The Tasmanians collect and eat mollusks, but to eat fish is a taboo for them. Californians eat fish only for some part of the year. Among the people who mostly depend on fish are those of Northern Pacific. In British Columbia and southern Alaska, they gain their major food supply by fishing and hunting sea mammals such as whale and seal. Only fishing keeps such large population alive. Now turn to another economy known as herding or pastoralism. Herding is generally considered to be a somewhat more secure way of exploiting the environment than hunting and gathering. Herding usually allows greater density of population than the economy based on hunting and gathering. The herders must move from one area of pasturage and water resource from one season to the next. Herders are either nomadic or transhumant. The transhumant is a phenomenon of movement of the herders following the change in seasons. The annual movement between village and cattle camp is most striking characteristics of the technology of the society that practice transhumant. Now let's move to another economy known as horticulture. Horticulture is a term applied to the cultivation or domestication of plants for food and other purposes without the use of plough. The major implements employed in horticulture is digging stick, supplemented at times by hoe and spade. Good variety of crops such as corn, millet, different roots, yams, potatoes, spices, etc. are the products of horticulture. Most of the horticulturists do not have adequate technologies to maintain the fertility of the soil. That is why they move their garden every year or every few years to regenerate the fertility of the soil. The irregularities of weather and infestation of destructive animals, insects and birds can create scarcity of their food crops. Because horticulturists usually depend for food on the crops which they produce, most of the communities living in hilly habitats of northeast India practice horticulture as the way of getting their livelihood through terrace cultivation and zoom cultivation. Now turn to the next economy, agriculture. Agriculture involves the use of plough and draft animals. The practice of agriculture is confined to the Old World and particularly to Europe, North Africa and Asia. In recent times, plough was a cruder implement. Soil cultivated by using plough is more efficient than by using digging stick and spade. A large population of the world living in fertile plains, practiced plough cultivation to feed the people. Finally, large areas can be prepared and planted at one time by using plough. Now let's move to the next economy, factory industrialism. Industrialism assumes a form of energy beyond that of the human being and domesticated animals. Like agricultural revolution, industrial revolution sweeps away all problems and presents a new one. Industrialism is, in one sense at least, the logical opposite of hunting and gathering societies. In hunting and gathering societies, there is minimal separation of domestic and community economy. In industrialism, the domestic economy and economy of the communities are almost totally separated. In industrialism, the subsistence level economy no longer exists, where a family or a household becomes a major consuming unit, but it is not a basic production unit as in subsistence economy. Now let us come to the concluding part of this topic. In prehistoric societies, resources, technology and work are combined together to meet the basic requirements of human beings. In order to satisfy these basic requirements, man moved from place to place in search of food resources because man could not survive without food. Main occupation of man was hunting, food gathering and fishing. As the development took place, from time to time, men started occupying themselves with herding, horticulture, agriculture and factory industrialization. Men became aware of new techniques. As a result of it, the quantity of production became surplus and time taken for production was reduced to the minimum level. Like agricultural revolution, industrial revolution sweeps away all problems and presents a new one.